Hello and welcome to Different Perspectives. I'm Paul Ndiho in Washington. Tonight, we focus on Sudan, where the United Nations and the United States are calling for urgent international action to stop the flow of weapons fueling atrocities by the Rapid Support Forces, RSF. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has accused the RSF of committing systematic war crimes, including mass killings, rape, and sexual violence against civilians in El-Fasher, Darfur. Despite UN arms embargoes, new reports show weapons continue to reach the RSF through smuggling routes, allegedly tied to the United Arab Emirates and other countries. Joining me from Kampala, Uganda is Shekoa Nyeketo, a journalist and human rights activist offering a first-hand update from the ground on what's really happening in El-Fasher and who is fueling the conflict and whether global powers will act before it's too late. Hello, Mr. Shekoa. Welcome to Different Perspectives.
Hello, Mr. Paul, and thank you for having me.
It's been a while since I last spoke to you. How are you and how is Kampala?
I'm very fantastic. Yes, it's been a while. Kampala is amazing with a very good weather today.
Terrific, terrific. So let's get into it. You are originally from Sudan. Since the war started, you fled the country. You've lived in so many different countries as you trying to figure out how to cope with the current situation. Maybe bring us up to speed. What's the current situation in Al-Fasher following RSF's capture of the city?
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul, for that opportunity. Yes, actually, I am originally from Sudan and specifically from Darfur region. And I have just been to Al-Fasher a few days before the war sparked in Khartoum. And I think we are all following the situation in Al Fasher before the capture of RSF and after the capture of RSF. And after the capture of RSF, right now, RSF is being called as the Ta'sis forces. So RSF has captured Al Fasher, and if you asked about post RSF capture of Al Fasher, the situation right now is different than what it was. The city was under siege. It was completely, locked from everywhere. Humanitarians aid were not able to enter to Al-Fasher, and access to the service was not available to the people. People in Al-Fasher suffered a lot. Not only the slashes of the weapon, but also the hunger, the famine, and the lack of services. As I speak to you, I was just actually in touch with people on the ground. There is something called Sudan Agency for Humanitarian Relief, for Relief and Humanitarian Cooperation, SAHU. They are on ground right now distributing humanitarian aid, foods and non-food items, also shelter, and whatever people need, including medical assistance. And you can see now a lot of international media houses and outlets are right now reporting from Al-Fasher. So there is a lot of information flow from there. The situation is now different than what it was.
Interesting. How about in terms of have you been like talking to people directly in Darfur? Do you have family there? What are they telling you?
In Darfur, depending on where they are, but generally, if we talk about my family who was residing in Niala right now, they're very okay. The situation there, they're not complaining because after the RSF captured the city for more than a year, there is a relative security right now, and there is no more attacks. Only sometimes there is a regular, drone attacks on the city sometimes.
Interesting. How about we've had reports of uh, is there any evidence to suggest that the RSF is committing these crimes that we read about in the news? For example, the killings, the mass rapes. Basically, a lot of people have characterized what's happening in Al-Fasher or the Darfur region as a genocide. What's your take on that?
The genocide in Darfur has started since 2003 and is still continuous until the spark of the latest war, 15th of April 2023. And when we talk about evidence that can actually justify and tell that RSF has committed those crimes that you're talking about, there are so many reports are coming from Al-Fasher, and investigation is right now ongoing. As you have heard, so many reports from agencies that are not on ground, from agents and from social media activists. So any report that I ground on is a report that has been done investigatively by trusted media outlet or trusted journalist, or something that can actually be seen. All what we have seen, the videos of killings and the videos of atrocities that happening in Al-Fasher, they are still under investigation. And for as of RSF, there are so many videos that RSF uh, uh, justify that these are not RSF, but rather other militias that are in favor for RSF, and they are actually supporting the RSF. So, for that reason, um, I can't actually state clearly that all those atrocities in Al-Fasher were committed by the Rapid Support Forces, allegedly.
So are you suggesting that there are other, even the government is also committing crimes there, but they have no access? One would argue that they have no access to that area. It's been taken over by the rebels or the RSF rebels led by Hamiti.
Yes, definitely. Both of them are committing because they are fighting in the city. Just hours before Al-Fasher was captured by the Rapid Support Forces, the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Joint Forces and support of Sudanese Armed Forces, they are in Al-Fasher and they are also attacking. They are also bombing. Al-Fasher has been bombed by airplane, by fighter jets, and cities like Al-Kuma, cities like Kap Kabia, and places close to Al-Fasher, they are even different places are bombed by the Sudanese Armed Forces rockets and drones and even Antonov bombardment. So the Sudanese army itself committing crimes also against the civilians. Both of them, when they are fighting, when there is a bombardment, most probably the unarmed civilians are the one to be affected before the army personnel.
You make a great point. You're saying that it's not just the RSF are committing crimes, but also the government is committing those crimes. But why is it that the international community, the United Nations, most recently the United States, is calling on the countries to stop the support of RSF? They're saying they are committing these crimes. And from what you're telling me, it looks like it's a two-way thing.
Definitely, you're quite right. So the United States of America has condemned uh, uh, um, the Sudanese armed forces atrocities. Even before that, just a few weeks, there was sanctions imposed on the Sudanese armed forces, and also there were reports. Even just I have just read some reports that the USA asking also the Sudanese armed forces to stop also receiving weapons, because what the US saying right now, not only RSF is receiving support from outside, but both of them are receiving support from outside. Otherwise, the war wouldn't have continued until today.
Interesting. How how credible are the claims that RSF is receiving arms and support through the UAE or United Arab Emirates and neighboring countries?
Well, what we hear is reports and statements. And when we look at the war and when we look at the two parts, the warring parties, the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces, they were one together as one national army. And the RSF itself was part of the army. And when they start fighting, each of the two parties started to maneuver around and find who can support them. And until today, RSF did not state it clearly that they are receiving support from a particular country, and as well as the army. But the army, knowing that is the Sudanese army, they are actually also supported by their alliance from different regions. So in this case, I could say, unless the United States ask the both parts to stop receiving and also stop the countries that are supporting the two parts, then the war will not stop. So it is actually unfair that we report on one side and we forget the other side.
Great point. Great point. How about you said you originate from that region of Darfur? What's the humanitarian situation like for civilians who are still trapped in El-Fasher and other parts of Darfur?
The situation, the humanitarian situation in Darfur in general and in El-Fasher, but let me say in Sudan at all, is actually not promising, because since there is a war, there is a fight, there is insecurity, definitely the humanitarian situation is not very good. And the people in El-Fasher, especially people in El-Fasher, they are lacking basic services, they are lacking food, drinks, shelter, since the war was there.
Uh, how has the Sudanese army responded to the US's call to cut off RSF's weapon supply?
Definitely, the Sudanese army welcomed that statement by the U.S. foreign minister. And but before that, also the U.S. has called both of them for a truce to ceasefire, but the Sudanese armed forces reject that call.
Interesting. The United States and the UN have both used the word genocide. From your perspective, from talking to people on the ground, maybe some of the relatives that are still there, is this an accurate description of what's happening on the ground in Darfur?
As I talk to you, I speak to people inside El-Fasher. And the word of genocide, if it has been used even by the USA, there should be, like I said before, investigative results after that. When we say a genocide, we are talking about the continuous series of genocides that happen in a country for a very long time until today. So what is happening there? There are some armed persons who have committed massive killing, who have killed people, and those videos are right now under investigation. There is a one video that you have seen, and the RSF said that they are right now taking the one who committed killing people in group under investigation, and also they are said they're taking that person into court.
You're correct about that. I think I've seen that video circulating around. They said that they will take all the necessary legal means that make sure that the person who committed those crimes is brought to justice. But maybe for our viewers who don't know where things are, can you help us maybe at least bring us up to speed? What is this war about?
Thank you very much. That's a very important question. This war, like I said before, and everybody knows that in Sudan, 2023, there was a framework agreement. It was a political framework agreement. The RSF and the army, they were one institution, which is the Sudanese army, called the military part. So the military was part of that very political framework agreement. And when they agreed on some points, so the militant and the civilians disagreed. And now, when it comes to signing that very particular agreement, the army actually divided into two. The RSF, led by Hamdan Dagalo, said, "We are with that framework agreement." The Sudanese Armed Forces, led by Burhan, said, "No, we are against that." And that's when the war has actually sparked. But when we come to talk about the main reason is that because, as you know, the Sudanese Armed Forces, as the military institution, also has its own agenda, and it has people within the army who are against the civilian transition. So in that very particular case, the RSF chose to actually go with the framework agreement that which the army not.
Thank you for that. In case you are just joining us, we are live and streaming on all the social media platforms. We are discussing the conflict in Sudan, where the United States is calling on the international community to halt the flow of weapons to Sudan amid the increasing evidence of atrocities by the Rapid Support Forces and the government forces in El-Fasher. Darfur, at the G7 foreign ministers meeting, in the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio condemned the RSF for systematic atrocities, including murder and sexual violence against civilians, making a notable condemnation from the Trump administration since the war began in April 2023. And my guest is Shakoa Nyaketo, a journalist and human rights activist, offering a stark first-hand update from the ground on what's really happening in El-Fasher, who is fueling the conflict, and whether global powers will act before it's too late. I'm back, Shakua. Let me get your thoughts on this. What role are regional powers like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE are playing? Are they trying to help solve the problem, or they're prolonging the war?
I think this the parts of this war, like you said, they are actually prolonging the war. They are not helping this war to stop. Why? Because since we have witnessed Saudi Arabia has been involved strongly hosting mediation talks and peace talks in Jeddah. And those efforts were actually not successful. Why this war continues is that because the warring parties have very strong and have points that they actually cannot step down to. For example, the Sudanese Armed Forces is asking the RSF to actually hand over weapons and group themselves in a particular place where they can start talk. And I think that is not going to be accepted by the army, by the RSF, because if two people are warring and one has a weapon and the other one does not have a weapon, then there is no meaningful fight. Then they will have to stop. And we have Egypt is a very important key player, and also Saudi Arabia, as well as the other countries in the region. What I suggest is that both supporters of the two warring parties have to actually understand, compromise their goals, compromise their agendas to the Sudanese people, especially people in Darfur and other regions. So if each supporter continues to actually not compromise the rights of the people in Sudan, then the war will definitely continue.
You know, I've been reading reports of sexual violence being used as a weapon of war. From your vantage point where you are and talking maybe to people on the ground, What are these survivors telling you?
Well, there are people, I haven't talked to a survivor directly, but I have read the stories and I have seen the reports from the ground. Actually, the two parts have, there are reports against the two parts, again, the two warring parts of this. And if we looked at the situation, how is it going in Al-Fasher, in other places? Also, we look at the situation, how is it going in the areas that are captured or they're under the control of the army. We are receiving the same reports, we are receiving the same atrocities, documentary, and everything. So this war has to stop immediately before we move into more community and social fracture, that the war right now is about to be described as a community and civil war that is actually leading Sudan to another chapter of long civil war.
Since you brought in the community, I'm just curious how the neighboring countries are responding to the influx of refugees coming from there. And what role should the African Union be doing in trying to, contain this war that has been raging now almost 3 years?
The neighboring countries are really, they are very welcoming and helping. We have Sudanese people in Libya. We have Sudanese people right now displaced also in Chad, in Central African Republic. We have Sudanese people in Uganda, South Sudan. All these neighboring countries have welcomed Sudanese people openly. And that is really very good. The reason is that because with our neighboring countries, we are interconnecting. The communities are interconnecting. So if you are from Sudan, from Darfur especially, and something happened, when you run to Chad, you will get relative. When you run to Libya, when you run to South Sudan, you will get relative as well. That means that these nations are in different borders, but they have the same destiny. They have the same, lineages, and everything is connected. About the African Union, I think there is only one way, if in which the African Union should actually approach this. The African Union need to actually start one distance from
Can
the
I pause you
both
for a
fighting.
second? Can I pause you
Yes.
for a second? Is it possible to? I know.
Yeah.
Hello. Shakur. Hello, Shakur. Uh, Okay, in case you are just joining us, we are focusing on Sudan, where the United Nations, the United States, are calling for urgent international action to stop the flow of weapons and atrocities being committed by the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, in Sudan. Earlier this week, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio accused the RSF of committing systematic war crimes, including mass killings, rape, and sexual violence against civilians in El-Fasher. Despite the UN arms embargo, and new reports show weapons continue to reach the RSF through smuggling routes, allegedly tied to the United Arab Emirates and other countries. And of course, I'm being joined by my good friend, a journalist from Sudan, Sheku Anyeketo, who is currently seeking a refugee in Uganda. He's a journalist and a human rights activist. He's offering us a first-hand update from the ground on what's really happening in El-Fasher, where he's originally from the Darfur region. So he has so much to say about who is fueling the conflict, whether global powers will act before it's too late. For some reason, I lost him, but I think he will join us shortly. Anybody who has been in a refugee situation can tell you that moving around with kids is not an easy thing. So as you could hear in the background, the kids are crying. So I think he just stepped away to make sure that the kid is okay. So he will be right back. So in case you're just joining us, the conversation today is on Sudan. This war started in April 2023. I remember it very, very well because I was on a flight to DRC, and we were stuck in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, as the fighting erupted in Khartoum. Almost all the flights to Khartoum and over the Sudan airspace were cancelled at the time. And I remember talking to people who are supposed to be boarding planes to go to Sudan who are stuck there. So, but where are we as we speak today? So many things have happened over the last couple months, I think so. Maybe for background and context, there's been so much happening to the extent that so many people have fled the country. Let me give you a little bit of context here. Let me see if I can give you a bit of context. I think it's been one of those things where stuff has been happening and the international community has not acted as it should, as it should. So my guest is Sheku Anyeketo. He just stepped away because his kids were not behaving, but I'm sure he will be back shortly. Now, for context, more than 300. For context, more than 36,100,000 Sudanese civilians have fled towns and villages in Kordofan region as violence intensifies. According to the United Nations, the central Kordofan state, situated between Khartoum and the troubled Darfur region, has emerged as the latest battleground in Sudan's civil war between the Sudanese armed forces and the powerful rapid support forces. Just over a month ago, the seizing of El-Fasher, the latest army stronghold in Darfur, the RSF has reportedly established a rival administration there, in a way a parallel government in El-Fasher. So this is something that for people who are not familiar with Sudan, Sudan split. Sudan used to be one of the biggest countries on the continent. It split into two. We now have Sudan and South Sudan. Now, what is interesting about these latest developments is that RSF, backed by Mohammed Dagalo, or commonly known as Hamiti, wants to cut off the section of Darfur. Darfur is one of those regions that it's a region that has had its fair share. If you guys remember back in the 2000s, early 2000s, there was a genocide committed against the people of Darfur. And guess who was at the helm of that genocide being committed in Darfur? The same people as we talk today, the same, I guess, the same faces, the same names ring the bell. One of the reasons why that a genocide was committed, it was then former President Al-Bashir who was using the paramilitary troops then led by Hamiti to commit some of those atrocities. But fast forward, once he's overthrown, Hamiti becomes part of this coalition government, and things did not work with the coalition government. So that's why we see these people fighting. But again, for context, with continued attacks, the paramilitary group has advanced towards other parts of Kordofan, the capital, the capital of Darfur. UN officials warned that atrocities, including summary executions, mass killings, rapes, and attacks against aid workers, are being reported in areas under RSF control. Of course, I've seen videos, I've read testimonies of civilians fleeing El-Fasher who reveal harrowing accounts of human rights violations. For example, in Bara, another city captured by RSF, at least five Red Crescent volunteers were reportedly executed point blank, right? As many as 50 civilians were believed to have been killed in and around that city. So, Sudan's civil war, which erupted in April 2023, as I said earlier, I was on a flight to DRC and I was stuck at Bole International Airport in Addis Ababa because it turned out that war had broken out in Khartoum and everything came to a standstill. Remains one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, with nearly 25 million people facing acute hunger. The US government recently determined that the RSF and allied militias have committed genocides in parts of the country. Yeah, my guest is back.
Yes, please.
Is back. Yes, sorry about that. You know, I was trying to figure out how to carry on this show. I wish you had warned me because this is a live show.
Sorry, a child was moving and then cut off the line.
Oh, so okay. My apologies to our viewers.
Sorry for
okay,
that.
But that said, I think let's get back to you're trying to make a point. I think you're trying to make a point before you disappeared. And
yes.
I think let me go back to that question. You're talking about, for example, you and your family are in Uganda. You are trying to make ends meet in Uganda. You also talked about the other neighboring countries that are helping. Maybe would you like to share what experiences you've had in Uganda so far?
Yes, since we started talking about that, maybe let me update the figures on, the war impact or effect on Sudanese citizens. As we talk right now in chat, it's about 888,000 plus Sudanese are actually refugees in that country until today. This is the latest update of November, the update of 9th November. If you go back to the archives of the United Nations or UNHCR, you will definitely get that. And the South Sudan is about 406,000 people. That's been 400 and 6,000 Sudanese people are actually in the South Sudan. Egypt has actually very quite big number, which is actually not confirmed. I did not have the latest update, but for Libya we have 400 and 12,000 Sudanese people alone, 87,000, 100,000 people. It's about a million actually. Chad, because it is very close to Sudan, not Chad, I mean Central African Republic, we have about 39,000 Sudanese. These are all Sudanese families and Sudanese citizens who are displaced outside their country by the war, meaning that we definitely need to look at that situation. And the reason for that is the war that the government did not actually think on it. And about how we are actually trying to make ends in Uganda and other countries. As you know, the story long, I lived in Kenya once and I went out of Africa. I come back again. Now I am in Uganda, trying to figure out what to do, because it is very difficult for me to go back today to the country, especially with family, maybe going there to start all over again. My office was in Khartoum. It was
Yeah, I think I just lost you. Hello?
It's not going to be easy to a bit just fearing. Yes. Do you?
Okay, we are almost
I'm
done.
here.
I see you have a lot of interference now. But for maybe, do you think that the RSF is likely to honor any future ceasefire agreements after what happened in El-Fasher?
Definitely, the RSF is still saying yes for the ceasefire. And when they said there was a peace talk in the USA last few months, the RSF sent their delegation, and now the quadret mechanism for peace in Sudan have suggested ceasefire. The Sudanese armed forces reject that ceasefire, and Al-Burhan himself, as a leader, said, "We will continue fight for 100 years from now." That means the army is actually planning to end this militarily, not with peace talks. But the RSF saying that they are ready to go for peace talks and ceasefire immediately.
Interesting. How are the local journalists, if you're able to talk to some, the activists like yourself, aid workers, coping amid these threats, detentions, and worsening conditions? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Before Al-Fasher, there were some reports, but now, yes, I am back again. I think, is it your internet?
No, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Very well, very well. The aid workers and the journalists and the activists are right now in Al-Fasher. They are able. And do not forget that the United Nations representative visited high envoy visited Al-Junaina, West Darfur.
Okay, my friend, it looks like we are having audio issues. Hello, are you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Yeah.
Okay, since you're having issues with, okay, let's do this. Let's wrap. What message would you like to send to the international community, and how can the international community that has been on the sidelines help you guys? Hello?
Well, there are two important things. The international, yes, I can hear you. The international community should investigate what exactly going on. The international media houses and media outlets are right now invited by the RSF to go to Darfur and document what is happening right there, including the crimes that might have been committed by the RSF itself and the army and all the other militias who are there. And the international community should right now, since there is an opportunity that and there is an open access to the region, I actually also urge the international community to flow this humanitarian assistance to Darfur region in general and other regions as well, because there is a chance right now the borders are open for them to join, and the RSF said there's no any problem with the humanitarian aids to come into the areas that has been captured by the RSF. So there is no problem in that. So please, the international community should definitely consider the situation right now in El-Fasher and other states in Darfur. People are in dire need for every humanitarian assistance.
Well, Shakwa Nyekedo, thank you so much for your insights and for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, Paul and Joe. I appreciate it.
This is different perspectives. We want to know what you think about Washington's push to cut off Sudan's RSF weapons flow. Share your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. And of course, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to me, Paul Ndiho, on Substack, X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, YouTube, and Spotify. Stay tuned for this continuing coverage on this platform and across all our social media platforms. Good night from Washington, and take care of yourself, man. Be safe.
Thank you very much.
Okay, just hang on for a second. I'm going to end the stream, okay?